Satya Dharma Reflection on March 26, 2022. Let's offer the Mahasankathan right now. May all beings humbly bow down, asking for forgiveness. Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. May we all, humans and non-humans, in all realms of existence, from the lowest hell realms until the Brahma realms, including all the special karmic payback zones, humbly bow down towards the Buddhas, the Maha-Buddhas, the Mahabarami, in all graces. Please preside over. May we humbly declare renunciation and evocation of all determination to gain within the body-mind aggregates, all the deluded desires and expectations within all the seeing, looking and knowing and insights, all the belief and disbelief. May we declare renunciation and revocation of all deluded desires and expectations, both in worldly and in Dharma. All the deluded desires and expectations within all things and all elements. May we declare renunciation and revocation of all deluded desires and expectations within honors, fames, and being the number one. May we declare renunciation and revocation of all the deluded desires and expectations within the nations, within homelands. May we declare renunciation and evocation of all the deluded desires and expectations towards all the graces, towards all the great perfection, all the deluded desires and expectations towards the path to the enlightenment. May we declare renunciation and evocation of all vengeance and the harbor thoughts of revenge in all lifetimes, all the curses, all the commitments and obligations. May we declare renunciation and evocation of all of these, and may we humbly ask for forgiveness in all cases of karma, in relation towards all graces, and towards all things and all elements, towards all beings, in all realms of existence, in all lands, which we have related and connected, not in the way of emptiness to emptiness, nibbana to nibbana. All the conflicts, even a tiny bit, which has happened with all the differentiations in one's own viewpoints, conflicting and going against the Satya Dharma and Nibbana as it is. All the offended towards the graces, towards the Mahaparami, towards temples and religions, all the hurting and harmings and destroying towards the graces or towards one another. All the offenses, hurting, harming, destroying towards temples and religions or towards nations, homelands of the Mahaparami, of the great perfection, and all the quarrels, both in front of the great perfection and behind the back. All the usage of opinions and meanings in criticizing, analyzing towards the graces, towards the Satya Dharma, blocking others, ignoring the blessing, the giving and renunciation and sacrifices of the great perfection. In all cases of karma, may we all, together with all beings, humbly ask for forgiveness. May all karma be forgiven for all of us from now onwards. May all karma be forgiven among one another for all beings. Ahosi, ahosi, ahosi. And may we all humbly offer the Mahasankhathan together with the four necessities, together with all followers, both in the non-humans and the humans, all the merits which has arisen from this giving at every time, at any period of time, be part of the blessing, following the great perfection, and being aligned with Nibbana as it is. May all beings in all realms of existence, in all lands, all the karmic debtors, and the karmic debtors of the karmic debtors, may there be part of this forever and ever. Retreat from the mind, from the disregarding, wherewith it, that which has nothing to do with the mind or the disregarding. Being obsessed to fixate with the mind is always gross. Even the disregard has nothing to do with itself. That which has nothing to do with the mind, that which has nothing to do with disregarding or not. Let it be absolute, so that there would be the help of purification through the extinction and emptiness. This is not helping to see, to know, to be restless or to fabricate altogether. Don't be obsessed with opinions altogether. To become samsara altogether, that's not the way. This is not to help create samsara more and more. Let's help end for samsara, ceasing the cycle of samsara as helping. That which has nothing to do with disregarding or the mind. Uninvolved even within the uninvolved itself. Retreat a lot more from the uninvolved, from the disregarding, from the mind. All the focusing, throwing the mind and determination, adding there is the samutai, totally samutai, the cause of suffering and the suffering itself. Retreat from the mind instantly. Retreat from the disregarding instantly. The uninvolved is not about anything within itself. Well with it. Let's purify all the expectations, all the mind determination that is adding in there. That is totally samsara. It's all about the causes of suffering is the samutai. Uninvolved, even within the uninvolved itself, nothing is within the uninvolved. It will enable oneself to purify through the extinction and the emptiness. This will enable the ceasing of the internal samsara. Without the disregarding, there's no ceasing, there's no ending. If there is just the disregarding or ceasing, there is not yet the blessing. Therefore, simultaneously share the essence of that which has nothing to do with the disregarding. The mighty force will be proceeding on its own. The blockage is the determination of the mind. In looking, seeing and knowing, there is only just obligation. Determination is gross. It's gross from the internal. Disregard, even from the disregard itself. Let's cease the ceasing itself, the attempt to cease. Let's cease within the ceasing itself, cut through the cutting itself, disregard even from the disregard itself. In this way, there will be the mighty force of the purification of the extinction and the emptiness. This has nothing to do with being adult or childhood. It has nothing to do with the birth, old age, sickness and death, having or not having, existing or not. This is because uninvolved even within the uninvolved itself, well with the essence, disregard even from the disregard itself. There is no need to search for anything to create desire there. Thinking to search is the desire within the mind itself. Disregard even from the disregard itself right away. Cutting within the cutting itself, extinguish within the extinction itself, ceasing within the ceasing itself. However, keep the senses and sense perception opening. It will be automatic proceeding of the compassion and great compassion. This is not to close the senses and sense perceptions. Keep the eyes and ears opening. Keep the senses and sense perception opening. This is automatic proceeding of the blessing. The mighty force of the purification of the extinction and the emptiness will be natural, simultaneously with the opening of the senses and sense perception. Let's make a well conclusion. Conclude the conclusion itself. Disregard even the disregard itself. Don't practice being the worldlings with determination and projection of the mind. Focusing within looking, seeing and knowing. Using the mighty project on. This is practicing being the worldlings. Practicing only beingness. Being samsara. This is practicing only clashes. Practicing only hurting and harming by throwing the mind to each other. Only clashes, clashes and clashes. This is the worldling's ways. Density of clashes. This is the worldling's ways. So don't be obsessed to practice being the worldlings. Disregard even from the disregard itself, so that it will be cutting through the cutting itself. Then it will turn into the automatic purification of the extinction and the emptiness. Let's bless through ending. Let's bless in the way of ending, helping through ending. Being obsessed to use the determination of the mind in looking, seeing and knowing, that is not helpful. It's just clashes and clashes and clashes. This is hurting and harming. It creates irritation. It only creates disturbances towards samsara itself. That is called hurting and harming through the mind, mental karma and its cycle, creating only disturbances and agitations with the projecting mind. There's only projecting of the mind. So disregard even from the disregard itself, so that it will purify the habits of the worldlings. Then there will not be contacts and clashes. It will not hurt and harm anyone or anything. Disregard even from the disregard itself, absolutely well with it. That which has nothing to do with the disregarding, to be given absolutely, then eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body and mind will not become harmful at all. This is not about throwing the mind here and there, on and on. It creates pitfalls and hurting and harming towards samsara at all times in such a way. Disregard, even from the disregard itself, that which has nothing to do with the disregarding, all the same with everything, uninvolved, even within the uninvolved itself, all the same. All the senses and sense perception will not become harmful for samsara. This is not about always projecting the mind and determines. This is the stream of focusing, projecting and determining. This is clashing at all times towards samsara, towards all things. This creates disturbances. This kind of way, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body and mind still become harmful themselves. Disregard, even from the disregard itself continuously, so that it will purify all this determination and projection of the mind. That is the attribute of attacking, hurting and harming within the mind itself. There is no need to act upon anything verbally. Using the mind projection and determination is already hurting and harming, creating only karma. Don't you know about karmic cycle of the mind? That is the worldling's ways. Only clashes. That's why all the 4 elements of earth, air, water and fire is full of vibhak, full of vedana and hindrances added in there. Disregard even from the disregard itself. Purify through the extinction for all the attacking from the mind. Purify through the extinction all this hurting and harming of the mind. Uninvolved even within the uninvolved itself. Disregard even from the disregard itself. That which has nothing to do with the disregarding, to be constantly there, then it will be the true blessing, not to become someone who attacks samsara, truly end to help samsara instead. The habits that added in the looking, seeing and knowing, or the delusion to project the mind. Disregard, instead, disregard, even from the disregard itself, it will make the determination and projection of the mind faded automatically. Then it will be true bodhisattva. Fully retreat from the mind and the disregarding, from the projecting and determination of the mind. That which has nothing to do with the disregarding, absolutely. Disregard even from the disregard itself. The disregard doesn't grasp itself. The The disregard is not about anything within itself. The disregard is not relevant to itself. That which has nothing to do with the disregard or not. Giving up the giving up itself, putting down the putting down itself, letting go of the letting go itself. It's not about letting go of anything, letting go of the letting go itself, putting down the putting down itself. Disregard even from the disregard itself. This is not about disregard from anything else. Disregard from the disregard itself, disregard even from the disregard itself, disregard from the disregard itself. This is not to disregard from anything else. The disregards from something else creates something that's remaining, always stuck with the path of the noble path. Being obsessed to let go of something instead of letting go of the letting go itself, this is being stuck with the noble path. Disregard even from the disregard itself. Let's end all levels of the noble path. Don't be obsessed within the noble path. Disregard even from the disregard itself. That is the disregard that doesn't grasp itself. This is not about the disregard that doesn't want anything from anything. The disregard doesn't grasp itself. This is not my or disregard in the way that not wanting something. Let's purify all the attacks, all the hurting and harming through the projecting of the mind, through the determination of the mind. All of these is hurting and harming. Disregard even from the disregard itself, absolutely, so that it will purify all the hurting and harming from the mind. Let's purify all the hurting and harming through the mind. Disregard even from the disregard itself. Use that which has nothing with the disregarding to purify through the extinction and the emptiness for the blessing onwards. Help through the purification of the extinction and the emptiness. This is not to be obsessed to use the mind on and on. Constantly share that which has nothing to do with the disregarding. Don't be obsessed to use the mind on and on. Disregard, even from the disregard itself, constantly. Don't be obsessed to use the mind. Then there will be automatic purification of the extinction and the emptiness. Anytime there is the usage of the mind, there's always hurting and harming and stirring up samsara, hurting and harming samsara at any time. So don't be obsessed to use the mind, disregard even from the disregard itself continuously, so that there will be the continuous purification of the extinction for the internal and the external. Whenever there is the projecting of the mind within oneself, then it's hurting and harming oneself. If towards the samsara, then it will hurt and harm samsara.